Now for this section, what we're going to be doing, we're going to combine all the properties that we have learned. Remember how we talk about multiplying, how about dividing, what happens when there's parentheses, what happens when there's a zero exponent, what happens when there's a negative exponent. So that is what we talked about so far. So today, what we're going to be doing, we're going to combine them all. What I'm going to be doing, to be honest, I'm going to first get rid of parentheses if I have any. Second, get rid of negative exponents if I have any. And the rest, I'm pretty sure is going to come out very, very simple. So let's take a look at question number 11. So first I started looking at, do I have any parentheses? And I see that I'm just looking on the top of the fraction. I have no parentheses. So I have the 2y x to the negative third. Remember, right now I'm just looking at parentheses. Do I have any? Now, looking at the bottom, I do have two sets of parentheses. The first thing I'm going to do, on the first parentheses, the 4, I'm going to multiply to every exponent on the inside. So everything on the inside has to have an exponent. Okay. So multiply the exponent on the outside to the exponent on the inside. So I'm going to have x to the 16th, y to the negative 4. That's from the first parentheses, right? All I did was multiply the exponent on the outside to the exponent on the inside. Now looking on the second parentheses, the negative 3, I'm going to multiply with 4. So that's going to give me y to the negative 12. Once again, all I was doing was I was getting rid of parentheses. Okay. Now, let me get rid of negative exponents or zero exponents. If I have a zero exponent, remember I just cancel it out. Somebody might come and say, is this y a zero exponent? No, it is not. When we don't see an exponent, it's y to the 1 in this case. When we don't see an exponent, it's to the 1. So, okay, I don't see any zero exponents. I do see some negative exponents. Okay, so let's see. What I'm going to be doing to cancel negative exponents, what I'm going to be doing is any negative exponent that we have on the top is going to become positive exponent at the bottom. Any negative exponent at the bottom, it is going to become positive exponent on the top. Okay, so in other words, any negative exponent becomes positive on the other side. Okay, so just for us to see, remember, I'm focusing right now just on negative exponents. That's all I'm focusing on right now. So I have a fraction. So now just looking on the top of my fraction, my 2 and my y, they are positive exponents. So I'm going to leave them right where they are. I'm just looking at negative exponent. The x to the negative 3 becomes x to the positive 3 at the bottom. So once again, any negative exponent becomes positive on the other side. So if it's negative on the top, bring it to the bottom and make it positive. If it's negative at the bottom, bring it to the top and make it positive. Okay, now let's focus on the bottom part of the fraction. The x to the 16th, I'm just going to leave that as x to the 16th. It is positive at the bottom, so it's fine. Now, on the top, I'm going to have y to the positive 4 and y to the positive 12. Notice how those last two y's, the y to the 4 and y to the 12, they were negative exponents at the bottom, and then I brought them to the top. Okay. So let me simplify this. So let me let this equal to, I'm simplifying things. Now, looking on the top, just looking on the top of my fraction, I have a 2, and then I have y to the 17th. Okay. Remember, all I did on the y's, because I had various y's, in this case, I had 3 terms of y, I just added the exponents. I went 1 plus 4 plus 12. That's it. I just added the exponents. At the bottom, I'm going to have x to the 19th. Now, the last thing I will do, if possible, if I have numbers on top and the bottom, I have whole numbers, top and bottom, simplify them. What I mean with simplify, like something like 6 over 8, I call it 3 over 4, right? If there's a possibility that I have two numbers, top and bottom, and I can divide them by the same thing to make them smaller, do so. Another thing I would do is I'm going to combine my x's and my y's. If I have x's on the top and bottom, subtract the exponents. If I have y's on top and bottom, subtract the exponents. I don't have anything. Like I'm looking if I have a letter that is both top and bottom. In my case, I don't have it. Okay, some of you guys might be like, Mr. Leonzo, what do you mean? What do you mean with that? Let's say, let me come up with an example. So let me change this to blue. Let's say I had something like 2x to the 3, y to the 17th over, let's call this 6, x to the 7, and y to the 3. Let's say I had something like that. I look at my numbers, my 2 and my 6. I can divide each by 2, so this becomes 1 and this becomes 3. So I will call this 1 over 3. On my x's, because I have top and bottom, I subtract them and keep them where the big one was. So I have x to the 4 at the bottom. I subtracted the exponents on the x's, keep them on the bottom because the big one was at the bottom. And then on the top, I will have y to the 14th. So this is what I mean. So this in blue is an extra example. This is what I mean. This is what we do when we have the same letter top and bottom. We subtract the exponents and keep them where the big one was. Now, when I type this 1 over 3, when I'm looking at the numbers, it is okay to skip the 1, and we will be skipping the 1. Okay, now let me come back to number 11. Let me come back to the red. Nothing I can do, right? That's simplified. That's it. That nothing I can do. So how am I going to type this? Let me just type in. I'm going to write it how you guys will type it. Everything that is on top of the fraction, I'm going to write this as 2 y to the 17th. Let me erase this extra example. So notice how I just typed in everything that how you guys will type it. Everything on top of the fraction, once again, is 2 y to the 17th. I do this slash, and then everything that is at the bottom of the fraction. In this case, x to the 19th. If I have both letters on the top or both letters at the bottom, if I have them on the same side, alphabetical order. The x term will come first. Okay, so 2y to the 17th over x to the 19th. Let's take a look at another example. I'm going to look at number 12. First thing again, the first thing I do is parentheses. The exponent on the outside, in this case 3, is going to multiply to all the exponents on the inside. So it's going to multiply to this, to this, to this, to this, and to the exponent here. In this case, it happens to multiply to everything because everything is inside the parentheses. So that gives me x to the 9th. Remember, all I'm doing, I'm multiplying the 3 on the outside to the exponents on the inside. So x to the 9th over 2 to the 3rd, x to the 6th, x to the negative 9, and y to the 0. I multiplied the exponent on the outside to all the exponents on the inside. And then what I'm looking for here are anything that has a negative exponent. Yes. Or a 0 exponent. I'm looking for negatives and zeros. Anything that has a zero exponent, basically gonna go away. So I'm just gonna get rid of that. Why is that? Because of anything to the zero is 1. And if you notice, everything at the bottom is multiplication. Multiplying by 1, it's a useless step. So why multiply by 1? Just leave it at that. So remember, I was looking for zero exponents and negative exponents. Okay. Let me say this is equal to, I'm going to simplify. So looking on the top, nothing I found, right? Remember, all I was looking for any any negative exponents or zero exponents. I found none of those on the top. Now at the bottom, I'm going to have 2 to the third, x to the 6. So far, that's 2 to the third, x to the 6. Those were positive exponents to begin with. And then I'm going to have x to the 9 on the top. This negative exponent is negative at the bottom, so it becomes positive on the top. So when I simplify this, I'm going to say this is equal to, I'm going to continue here. I have x to the 18th, right? I combined those because it was multiplication, so I added the exponents, and then I have 8x to the 6. Some of you might be, where do you get that 8 from? Well, 2 to the third, that's basically 2 multiplied 3 times. So it's easier to write 8 than 2 to the third. So I will multiply that. Okay. So my first thing was get rid of parentheses. Second thing was get rid of any negative or zero exponents. I combine the top, I combine the bottom, and then let's see, have a fraction. First of all, I look any numbers, any whole numbers. Yes, there's an 8 at the bottom. Okay. Now, do I have a case where I have the same letter on top and bottom? In this case, I do. My x values. I have an x on the top, have an x at the bottom. I'm going to subtract the exponents. So 18 minus 6. So notice how I always go, because I want my answers to be positive, I always go the big number minus the little number, 18 minus 6. So it's going to be 12, x to the 12. And I'm going to write it on the top. The reason why I chose the top, because the big number was on the top. If the big number was at the bottom, I would have written that at the bottom. Okay, I have no y's, right? Everything is simplified. So that's it. That's my answer. The way we're going to type this, I look what's on the top of the fraction. X to the 12. And then over 8. Remember, I do my slash every time I'm going to write a fraction. Everything before the slash is what goes on top of the fraction. Everything after the slash is what goes at the bottom of the fraction.